Welcome to Building a Better Retirement. My name is Morgan Hill. I'm the CEO and founder of Hill and Hill Financial. And with me is one of our chief advisors, Matthew Parker. Matthew, why don't you just share with the folks a little bit about your background and what brought you to Hill and Hill?
Yeah. I'm Matthew Parker. I'm an associate advisor here at Hill and Hill Financial. Joined the firm, what was it, July of last year?
Yeah, boy,
It's
time
only
has
been a
flown by.
couple of months, but it seems like I've been here a while in a
That's,
good way.
yeah,
Yeah. So here at Hill and Hill, I take on leading the income plan. Uh, at a previous role, I got really good experience using income planning software and just learning the ins and outs of income planning, everything that goes into it, and what really goes into making a good income plan.
yeah.
I've seen a lot of bad income plans, ones that don't address the full picture of a client's needs and their retirement. So, like to get a full picture so clients can better understand the inflows and outflows of their retirement.
Yeah. You hold lots of licenses as an advisor, as a fiduciary, as an insurance agent, and soon to be an enrolled agent with the IRS.
That's correct. Yep. Studying
Absolutely.
to become an enrolled agent with the Internal Revenue Service.
Yeah. And I saw the books that you were studying. There are very few pictures and there's no margin. They use every bit of that page. And just my background, folks, I've been privileged. This is our 25th year of doing what we do, helping families across the country and across the city and across the state really build that retirement they've always been dreaming about. As with Matthew, I'm a licensed fiduciary, licensed advisor, licensed broker, licensed insurance agent. I do have area in the education in the area of law and tax. I'm not a CPA or an attorney, but we work with great teams of them. And we really work on these four areas of building a better retirement to give folks confidence that they can enter this stage of life and really live the dreams, help their family live the dreams that they've always been thinking about, but now they're becoming reality. So welcome everyone to our podcast, Building a Better Retirement. And today, Morgan and Matthew talk about the four pillars of retirement. My colleague here at the office, Matthew Parker.
Hello.
Yeah, good to have you, Matthew. And one of the things we're just going to spend a few minutes as we kind of set the stage for future broadcasts is really about these four pillars of retirement. Matthew, why don't you just kind of share with the folks what these four pillars are that are really kind of structurally the foundation of building a good retirement?
Yeah. So the four pillars that we take a look at when building a better retirement are income and investing. That's number one. Number two is risk management. Number three, estate planning. And the fourth pillar is taxes.
Yeah, Matthew, you and I have had the privilege of having lots of meetings with folks. And one of the things that often doesn't get looked at is really detailed income planning. We've talked a lot about if we were building a house, income is really your roof, your room, your floors, and your doors. You got to get that established and solid before you talk about the growth side. And what we jokingly call that is pools, pergolas, and patios. That's fun. You can have your cookout and your barbecue, but you got to make sure the house is built, structurally solid, and framed in. And that's where income comes in. And it's got to be stable, has to be, in some cases, guaranteed, depending on the type of money. And it needs to cover all of those non-discretionary monthly bills for the both of you, for the one of you. And it's not just for a week or two. It's got to be for a long time. Matthew, you're
Right.
really one of the chief architects as we do income planning here at our firm. Why don't you just kind of talk with the folks about kind of what the income planning looks like and your approach to it?
Yeah. Using the metaphor of building, you always want to measure twice and cut once. And I
There you
feel
go.
like a lot of people have a nebulous idea of the income streams that they'll have in retirement and a rough idea of their money's going out through various expenses. But it really helps to have a written plan to know exactly what will be coming in and what will be going out. So one of the things we look at, is your inflows, your outflows, but also what happens with taxes. What happens if we take Social Security at different ages? And, we're just able to measure the plan in various number of ways and then see what works best.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking about when I went to high school, which is now almost a half century ago. I had this buddy in high school. His name was Chris. Chris was just one of the cool dudes in school, and he actually aced his ACT test. I think he got like a 31 or a 32, but he would just kind of cruise through school, and he was just always the cool kid. But I never forget talking to him one time, and he could do all the math in his head. We were out there scribbling numbers on paper and trying to do trigonometry formulas, and Chris would just go, "Oh, I can do this all in my head." And it's like, man, if he just applied half of his brain to his career, I have no idea what happened to Chris later in life. But What I found is in retirement, Matthew, you just alluded to it, is a lot of people that we interact with are trying to be Chris. They're trying to do the math in their head. And actually, if it's the both of you, and especially in those early years of kind of the go-go years in your 60s of retirement, oh, I can do the math in my head. I know what's coming in. It's all good. It gets trickier as we move further because life changes, expense changes. I don't want to be negative, but what if instead of the two of you, there's the one of you, and all of a sudden the math
Mhm.
changes? And so we want to be prepared. And you may be able to do the math in your head, and that's awesome. But we're big proponents of take those figures out of your head, put them down on the computer, play around with them a little bit, make sure they meet your need so that you can live the life that you've been dreaming about for decades without maybe just the confidence that you know that you've got that plan that works for you. Matthew, we talk about this second pillar about risk management. And risk management is not, fun to talk about, but there are really three big ones that we zero in on. One is mortality risk. What if somebody passes away? Morbidity risk. What if somebody gets sick? And then longevity risk. My mom is 91. I don't know that she ever thought she'd be 91 and she's kicking along. But what if you are the oldest person in the family? And, did we have a plan for that? And
Right.
that's a key piece of what we do, right? Yeah, you want to make sure that you've got that game plan, especially Matthew, as we chat with folks. Life insurance is often a big thing that people debate. Healthcare, nobody's debating that. When we think healthcare, when we think about mortality, life insurance, should I have it? Should I not? And that can sometimes function, and especially when you're looking at income plans. What happens toward the end of things? Did you have any life insurance that could make up for an asset that you might lose?
Yeah, I mean, it's really all of these tools in the toolbox. I know you're a fan of saying, don't let the tool hijack the conversation. Even if insurance isn't the answer, these are still needs that need to be met.
Yeah. Folks, as we're talking about risk management, one of the things that, as Matthew talked about, that hijacking, in our professional opinion, again, we hold lots of licenses. Among them, we are insurance licensed. The conversation about care has been, I think, hijacked by the tool long term care insurance. Again, there are lots of tools that you can use, but too often people go, oh, yeah, someone tried to sell that to me and I didn't want it or couldn't afford it. And then they never have a conversation subsequent to that versus, oh, there's a 7 in 10 chance that folks are going to need some sort of help with activities of daily living over what 3 to 5 years, Matthew. We've got this issue, so how do we solve it? And there are lots of ways to deal with it, folks, but certainly one of the ways which we start is if you've got a good income plan, that can go an awfully long way to covering the costs. Not just, it's like immediate, but what if I am 82 and I can't get around or I do need some help? So, and the conversation, you retire, Matthew, I'm getting ready to do my income plan. Should I keep my life insurance or not? Well, it's an expense and I don't want that expense to overshadow. So sometimes people dump it, they keep it. So hopefully what this kind of speaks to is the fact that all of these begin to intersect, right? And that's the whole thing about as we talk about building a better retirement. This room has to join to that room. It has to meet code. I can't, if there are two walls that are joining each other, Matthew, and I can put my fingers through it and wiggle them, then maybe we don't have a good plan in place
Right.
yet. So, obviously a key piece, and sorry to bring this up, but taxes, darn it. Matthew, certainly, as we do work on tax planning, a lot of work around tax prep, and we've got great CPAs, and you're actually doing some study, right?
Yeah, currently studying to become an enrolled agent, which is a designation given by the Internal Revenue Service. It would allow me to represent clients in front of the IRS, shows a general understanding of all the various tax codes. Yeah, when we're taking a look at tax planning, we're really taking a look at, it's not just what you're earning, but it's what you get to keep after taxes. And so there's a number of different strategies that we look at. One of the most popular topics of conversation and just retirement planning in general is Roth conversions. There's a lot to consider there if it's right for you or not. We take a look at things like IRMA. There's also options, qualified charitable distributions, 1031 tax-free exchanges, and 1035 tax-free exchanges. Just more tools in the tool belt. Not all of them are right to use it all the time. Very, very dependent.
Yeah, you know what? We always think about tax preparation. And let's just be clear, folks, that's really important. See, when I look at my 1040 and on the back of that first page, it says refund or I want to make sure I give my CPA and my tax professionals all the information. If it's a refund, I want a big fat number. And if it's an O, I want it to be itty bitty, teensy tiny. But planning often gets lost. And this is not a function of the CPA firms or anyone. It's just there's so much to deal with just on the tax preparation, all the rules and all the regs and all the changes. People often don't take a break and say, well, let's talk about planning. What's on the horizon? Matthew, you alluded to this qualified charitable distribution. For those of you who are listening who may not be familiar, once you turn 70 and a half, you have the ability to donate directly from your traditional IRA to the charity of your choice. Instead of it coming to you taxed as ordinary income, then you give it to the charity and take the write off, which may or may not be helpful given the standard deduction. You can just donate it directly as long as it's a legitimate 501c3. Matthew, we meet a lot of people. It's like, well, I'm giving anyway.
Hmm.
Don't need to jack up my marginal tax brackets. Why don't I just donate it directly to the institution that we've been donating to for years? Wow. Why isn't anyone talking about that? Because again, some of these tax planning strategies, and you certainly talked about Roth conversions. There are times where paying the tax makes all sorts of sense and you're done. Then there are times where I want to bring two things together that you mentioned, Matthew. One is Roth conversions and IRMA. IRMA is not your great aunt, right? It's income related monthly adjustment amount. It's basically, Matthew, you've talked about this. There are brackets that if you
Hmm.
make more than a certain amount, there's going to be extra tax. There's going to be extra cost to Part B and Part D, Boy and David, right, of your Medicare. And so as people are doing these Roth conversions, which could be very beneficial, that comes to them as ordinary income. If their ordinary income is elevated, the IRS looks back every 2 years, every 2 years, every 2 years, and it could skyrocket your Medicare expenses. While on the other hand, hey, it did great for my Roth conversion. So you've got to make sure that when I've done, you talk about housing and building. I remember I put up wallpaper one time. One time, Matthew, just
That's all it took.
that's all it took. But I was not looking at how, when I was trying to stretch the wallpaper and trying to measure the walls, I was trying to do two things at once. And while I was focused on the fact that this part of the wallpaper was stretching, I didn't realize that the other part of this wallpaper was beginning to tear. So then when I pushed forward and I thought I had all this wallpaper neatly done, I realized I only had half a piece of wallpaper. Really, really upset because it was nice wallpaper. But once it's torn, it was torn. So you got to make sure that what you're doing on one side matches with the other. And the tax planning is a key piece. To wrap this up, we talk about estate planning, Matthew.
Hmm.
Just, from your perspective, as you look at on the estate, how do you make sure those you love get your stuff, not those you don't, or how can they help you with your stuff if you need to?
Yeah. I think we take a look at how different things that you accumulate throughout your life, they move differently upon your passing. There's a couple of different ways things can move. They can move as a function of law, as of contract, and
Yeah, certainly it goes through probate. That's a big
yeah,
one.
and probate. Yeah. And so just making sure that we structure those things that you've accumulated to go to the right people at the right times for the right reasons.
Yeah. As we first of all, we work with wonderful teams of attorneys around the city, state, and country. Neither Matthew or nor myself are licensed attorneys. Didn't pretend. I come from a family of them. They didn't need another one. But one of the things that we've worked to do, folks, is to really architect how estate planning works. We bring in wonderful attorneys to draw up the legal document. Oh, you need a will. You might need a living will, a power of attorney for health or money. Maybe it's a trust. But there's far more to the conversation about how are your beneficiary forms filled out. Is there a time in which you have property in different states and maybe you got a bunch of kids that are bickering and fighting? You may not want to have that go through probate. But as you alluded to, Matthew, too often people make probate holy or evil. This is bad, this is good. And what we try to do is just say, this is how things work. Here are the pros, here are the cons, what's right for you versus a one size fits all. Yeah. Kind of like, if you go into a neighborhood, have you ever seen it where I've seen contract, Matthew, you've probably seen this in your neighborhood where there's one size, right? It's like boom, boom, boom. It's like, wow, once we got
Yep.
that cookie cutter going, it's the same for every single one. They may paint the doors different, but they're all the same. And then you find contractors that say, oh, well, if there's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath bungalow, maybe this is a 5-bedroom, 6-bath, larger house that faces the lake. But everything is specific based on what people want. And probably Matthew, if we put this all together, as we do the work that we do and we talk about building a better retirement, it's all about these 4 areas custom to your situation, your family, your goals, your dreams, to make sure that you really live that retirement you've always been thinking about, dreaming about, hoping about. Part of our role is to help you work to achieve that, or at least have the confidence that you're moving in the right direction.
Definitely.
Folks, thanks so much for tuning in, and make sure to come back and visit with us because As we call this, Building a Better Retirement. Each of our segments will be where Matthew and I talk about specific areas and bring, up to date topics into the discussion, because our whole focus is to give people better information, better choices to really build that retirement that we've all been dreaming about. Thanks for tuning in.